Episode 132 of the Read to Lead podcast is brought to you by FreshBooks, offering a month of unrestricted use, totally free, and you don't need a credit card for the trial. To claim your free month that includes all FreshBooks features, just go to freshbooks.com/read-to-lead.
What the book is about is taking these ideas that you want to accomplish and changing them from a wish list into a to-do list and breaking that to-do list into small daily steps.
Welcome to the Read to Lead podcast with Jeff Brown. Jeff believes that if you desire to achieve true success in business and in life, then consistent and intentional reading is a must. The Read to Lead podcast will not only help you narrow this ever-important reading list, but also bring you key insights and valuable feedback from some of today's most successful and inspiring authors. And now, here's Jeff.
I am so glad you're here. I am Jeff, and welcome to the podcast that's dedicated to your personal and professional growth. Leadership central to our discussion each week. But as you may know, if you've been here before, we also dig into things like personal development, productivity, career, business, marketing, sales, entrepreneurship, and it's personal development that, for the most part, is getting our focus today. In a moment, you and I are going to be joined by Terry Lancaster. He's the author of Better, Self-Help for the Rest of Us. And I plan to ask Terry about the difference between striving for perfection and living a perfectly great life, his belief that sustainable change is almost always achieved through incremental change, why expectations are the enemy of happiness and gratitude is its BFF, and much more. But I posted a recent survey in the Read to Lead Facebook group asking members subjects they'd most like to learn about. The number one answer was starting a side business or a side hustle. And if that's the case for you, one of the first things on your to-do list needs to be figuring out how you're going to handle accounting. And the way I've been doing it for 7 years is with the cloud accounting software FreshBooks, who currently is offering a free 30-day trial to you as a listener to this podcast. In fact, the trial includes all FreshBooks features. All you have to do to claim your free month, and you don't need a credit card, by the way, is to go to freshbooks.com/read-to-lead and just enter Read to Lead when you see the How Did You Hear About Us section. FreshBooks has a deposits feature which streamlines how you invoice for money up front when kicking off a project, say. FreshBooks can send late payment reminders automatically to your clients, which of course means you're not chasing down people, which is very, very cool. And using FreshBooks, it takes all of about 30 seconds to create an invoice. It's super easy. And for a guy like me who's not a fan of accounting, that is saying a lot. So don't miss out. Take advantage of FreshBooks' offer, a month of unrestricted use, totally free, and you don't need a credit card. Again, to claim your free month, go to freshbooks.com/read-to-lead. That's freshbooks.com/read-to-lead. Terry Lancaster helps salespeople and entrepreneurs create better lives and build better businesses, a step at a time, starting right here, right now, using the power of habit, focus, and flow. And his articles have appeared in Forbes and the Good Men Project. He's also an entrepreneur, speaker, and #1 best-selling author. And that #1 best-selling book is the focus of our conversation today. It's called Better, Self-Help for the Rest of Us. And it's a great one. I highly recommend that you pick it up. Terry, welcome to the Read to Lead podcast.
Jeff, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Well, I wanted to start by getting into sort of your philosophy regarding life. It's a philosophy that sort of runs throughout the book. So share a bit, if you would, Terry, how you came to believe that we really have a whole lot more control over our lives than we let on a lot of times.
You know, I've always kind of believed that. I've always felt that you create your own life, you create your own reality, and I've always been I've been in sales for 30 years. So I've been one of these guys. You know, when I first got out of school, I was driving around the back roads of Mississippi with my Zig Ziglar tapes in my car and the Strangest Secret with Earl Nightingale coming out of the speakers. So I've always kind of been that guy. I think the big change came about a few years back, 4 or 5 years ago, when I realized that maybe we don't have as much control as I thought we did, and maybe control isn't the right word. We can create our own realities, but we're not really in control of much of anything except for the present moment, our action that we take right here, right now. What I'd always thought before then was if I work really hard, I can get a Ferrari by the time I'm 30 and I can be a multimillionaire and I can own my own business. I can do all these things. And everything that I was wanting was one of these things that's outside, that's down the line, somewhere in the future that has nothing to do with right here, right now. The difference came about is when I decided that what I wanted was right here, right now, only better. And I had absolute power to make it better if I wasn't so worried about what happened then and what might be happening in the future. And I started concentrating on being better right now.
Well, talk a bit, if you would, Terry, about the difference between how you define better and what a lot of us get stuck in doing, and that's attempting to strive for perfection. You use this phrase that I like, rather than perfection, living a perfectly great life. Can you go into detail about that?
Well, it happened. I was sitting out on my back deck one day, and I was worried about business, and I was worried about how much money was going to come in, and I wanted to do all these really big things. And I just looked out, and I've got a beautiful backyard, and I've got a beautiful home, and I've got a beautiful family. I've got a great wife. I've got loving children. And I thought, man, what else do I need? All of this is really great. If I spent as much time and energy nurturing the soil that I have, tilling the ground that I'm standing on, instead of shooting down the line, trying to be something that everyone tells me that I should be, that all the commercials and everything on Facebook is telling me that I need to be one kind of thing. If I would just concentrate on tilling the ground in front of me and nurturing the blessings that I've been given, that can make all the difference in the world. And it makes all the difference in the world in how everything grows, but it makes even more difference in how I look at things. And if you look at things, I think it's Oprah said, you'll never get more of what you want until you appreciate what you have. Mm-hmm. And what I say is your life will never be better until you realize exactly how good you already have it.
I loved that part of the book and in your philosophy. I certainly identified with it myself. I was just talking with my wife last week. We visited her sister's house, and it's expansive. And we walked in, and I looked around, and I said, "Well, Annie, you want one of these too?" And she's like, "Nope." I love what we have. I'm totally appreciative of the here and now. Well, when it comes to goal setting, I know for me, I won't speak for anybody else, but I know for me, I can look at that end result, which is usually a big, hairy, audacious kind of thing. Yeah. And it can be difficult to kind of back up from that and start breaking it down into steps and make it something that you can have some reasonable expectation of actually achieving. And I want you to talk about why you believe that sustainable change, whether that's to do things like improve our health or our finances or our business or anything else, is almost always found in incremental change.
Well, it happens because, I'll give you the example. When I started making the changes that I was making in my life, and I lost about 60 pounds, and I quit drinking, and I started exercising, and I was kind of turning Ship Terry around, and a buddy of mine said, you should write a book about this. And I laughed at him. And then I joked. I said, "You're right. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to call it How to Lose 100 Pounds and Make $1 Million." But first, I got to lose 100 pounds and make $1 million. But that's what all the self-help books are. They're about these big, hairy, audacious goals that are somewhere down the line, because they use those to motivate you to take the action that you want to take, that they want you to take. So, and also it helps sell more books. No one's going to sell a book that says work really hard and maybe lose a pound here and there. That's not going to sell. So you got to have the big ideas to drive the marketing engine, and also they use it for motivation. But the problem is motivation and willpower are horrible change agents. They're great for getting you out of the gate. They're great for getting you up off the couch that one time, maybe twice. But motivation is a depletable asset. The more you use it, the less you have. And motivation always fails you at the exact moment that you need it most, because that's the moment you run out of motivation. So what I've done and what the book is about is taking these ideas that you want to accomplish and breaking them down, changing them from a wish list of things that you want into a to-do list of things that you can do, and breaking that to-do list into small daily steps that you can take every day, because every day, if you set a goal of losing 100 pounds or making $1 million, or every day that you wake up and you haven't lost 100 pounds, you haven't made $1 million, you're a loser. You've failed. You become frustrated, and several days in a row of being frustrated and not losing 100 pounds, you're going to decide that all of this isn't worth the effort. We all look for the easy button, and we want something to happen right now because we've got these big goals and we want the change to happen right now. And when it doesn't, we get frustrated and then we stop. But if your sustainable change is getting up and making incremental steps every day, a step that you can take today, a step that you can take again tomorrow, a step that you can take every day this week until it becomes a habit, and then it just happens automatically. And you do that enough times in a row, then cumulative steps add up. There's a story in the book about the power of cumulative interest and compound interest, how tiny investments can grow to massive fortunes over time, and tiny changes in your life can grow to massive changes in much quicker than you ever thought if you do that every day.
Connected to that, Terry talks in the book a bit about the work of a Stanford professor in the areas of behavior and motivation. And I thought this was particularly fascinating. I watched Professor Fogg's TED Talk and got so much out of that. Can you share a bit about a bit of the work he's doing in that area?
First of all, I owe B.J. Fogg a huge debt of gratitude. He introduced me to my favorite word. I have a degree in English, and I'm a journalist. I was a journalism major. I've been a writer my entire life, and he taught me my new favorite word, and I'd never heard of it. It's automaticity. I'd never heard of this word until I saw him deliver it in that TED Talk, and I had to go look it up. And automaticity is the ability to make things happen without the upper level thinking required. So it's if they happen automatically by routine or by habit. And he was the first one that I heard talk about exactly what a habit is. A habit is simply a subroutine in your brain. It's a program that tells your brain what to do. And we do that to save time. We think, especially salespeople and entrepreneurs, we like to think that we're in charge of our own destiny, that our lives are a product of the decisions that we make, and nothing could be further from the truth. Because here, another professor, this is a Harvard professor by the name of Daniel Gilbert, he says that we spend at least 50% of our time running on autopilot, that we're in our subconscious mind functioning by habit the vast majority of the time. So B.J. Fogg's, he's the first one I ever heard to talk about exactly what the habit is. It's a subroutine, and there's a habit loop. And he breaks down the habit into its formative particles, that there's a trigger that causes the habit, that tells the program to run. That's the if-then part of the subroutine. If this happens, if I have to get up and put on my shoe, then I tie it, with the bunny ears like I've been doing since I was in kindergarten. If I'm making a peanut butter sandwich, I put the peanut butter on the right side of the bread and the jelly on the left side of the bread, because that's the way I've always done it. We don't stop to think about that and make those decisions. The trigger initiates the routine, and then the routine runs. And then at the end of the habit, there is a reward. Whether it's my shoes tied and my shoes don't fall off, or whether I get to eat my peanut butter and jelly sandwich and it tastes yummy because just like mom made, but that sets off the serotonin in our brain and we get the reward, and that causes our brain to seek out that habit in the future. And that's all a habit is a routine that runs because there's a reward trigger that makes us seek it out in the future. Now, B.J. Fogg's genius part of it is he took that the middle part, the sandwich part of the habit loop, and he said, in order to create that habit, you have to start small. He did a lot of research and study into motivation and willpower, which is just what I said, and that he proved that motivation is depletable. It functions just like a muscle, and the more you use it, the more tired it becomes, and eventually you can't get any more out of it. And the harder something is for it to happen, the more motivation it's going to take, and the quicker it's going to run out. So what he said is, if you want to build the habit, you have to start small. And he has an entire program called Tiny Habits. And I went through the program. I think it's called tinyhabits.com. And he'll run you through a little 5-day program to create a new habit. But starting small is the key to get out the gate, to start small, and to repeat this action on a daily basis until it becomes a habit.
Yeah, and the key is to attach it to something you're already doing, right?
Yeah, his trigger. The trigger is what causes the routine to run. So he said he decided that he wanted to be more physically active. He wanted to be stronger, and he was going to start doing push-ups. But, again, like most of us, if we start doing push-ups, you're going to go do 100 a day the first day, and then you're done with it. Well, he took exactly the opposite approach. He said, I'm going to do one push-up at a time, and I need to find a trigger that I can use to remind me to do a push-up. And he decided that he was going to do a push-up every time he peed. So he'd go to the bathroom, he'd flush the toilet, and the sound of the flush was his trigger to run the subroutine to do his push-up. And I hope he stepped out in the hallway at least to do the push-up. I assume in my mind he did. So he goes out the hallway, he does a push-up, and then he says, okay, you get that warm, fuzzy feeling in your arm from doing the push-up, but that's not enough. You need to really cement that serotonin boost. So he would jump up after doing the push-up and go, I'm awesome. And do a little chicken dance, do the winner chicken dinner, shake his moneymaker, do a little dance around the house, get his smile going on, because your brain doesn't know if you're just being silly in front of yourself, or if you're just being silly in front of a million people, or if something really great just happened. Your brain just knows you get that serotonin boost, and tomorrow his brain is going to go, oh, the last time that toilet flushed, we did a push-up and we got all the happy juice in our head. So that's exactly what he did. He built the habit by making a fool of himself and doing a push-up when he peed.
And depending on his liquid intake, I understand he's doing anywhere from 60 to 70 push-ups a day now, right?
That's right, yeah.
Well, Terry, share what you mean when you say that expectations are the enemy of happiness.
When we expect things, we set ourselves up for disappointment. When we expect to lose 100 pounds or make $1 million, we think that's what we want, and that's what we were designed for. Every day we don't wake up, we're disappointed. Expectations and comparisons are both the enemy of happiness, and we compare ourselves to everyone else, and we expect our lives to be like we see on television, or like we see on, everyone has a highlight reel that we run on Facebook, or we go over to our sister-in-law's house and she's got this great open floor plan house with hardwood floors and granite countertops. And we expect our life is going to be like that. And we go back, and I live in a 1975 ranch house, and I do not have hardwood floors and granite countertops. And we go, wow, that's not as cool and as exciting as everyone's other stuff. And we start, our brain is kind of like a dirt road, and we go down one track of comparing us. Well, we're not as great as that. And we go down that dirt road, and we develop that neural pathway. And the more that neural pathway is set for us to be disappointed with our lives and our expectations and looking for something to complain in, that's what we do. And expectations allow you to do that, because you're not reaching there, and instead of concentrating on here and now, you're expecting something in the there and then.
I really appreciated the chapter on gratitude. Can you talk a bit about the role that gratitude plays when it comes to happiness?
Well, gratitude gives you the chance to form a new dirt road. Mm-hmm. We have these neural pathways in our brain that you're always ticked off about something. We're always angry about something, and we're always having an argument. And that's the neural pathway that's set in our brain. Gratitude gives you a chance to develop a new dirt road, to put new ruts in your brain to become thankful. And the more thankful you are for what you have, the more of that you will get. So, my personal habit is every night when I go to bed, I think of 3 amazing things that happened that day. And three amazing things, whether it's just the sun shining on my face, or whether I picked up a new client, or whether I booked a new talk, or whether I got to do a new podcast with Jeff Brown. I look of something amazing that happened that day, and I become thankful for it. And I cement that in my brain. And so my brain now is looking for more opportunities to be grateful. Instead of looking for something to complain about, I'm looking for something to be happy about. So gratitude in its very essence is simply happiness, because you're looking for something to be happy about instead of looking for something to gripe about. Zig Ziglar said most people complain about something like it's their full-time job, because that's how they've wired their brain. Well, what I've tried to do is rewire my brain to never complain and to always look for something to be thankful for.
I know a few family members who could benefit from that. Well, I'm constantly amazed at some of the otherwise really bright and super talented people that I meet who spend, it seems, a little, if any, time, Terry, developing an honest-to-goodness network, whether that's meeting people out face-to-face or leveraging social media or what have you. And I'd be curious to know what you feel like you've learned the last 10 years or so about the benefits of developing your network, and share why you believe it's important that we all view ourselves really as salespeople.
You just talked about your family members. If you're raising kids, they're the best salespeople on earth because they're constantly selling you. And if you're trying to sell them on eating their vegetables and going to school and studying hard, you're trying to sell a young lady on paying attention to your romantic advances. We're all selling something, whether we're getting paid for it or not. We're all trying to convince and convert. That's what the human experience is about, is forming a community, convincing, converting, and communicating. And I came late to this. I'm an introvert. I know you have a background in radio. I have a background in radio as well. And probably 2/3 of I don't know if your experience is like this, but 2/3 of the disc jockeys I know are all introverts. We're perfectly happy talking into a microphone in a closet somewhere.
Yep.
But you put us in a crowd of people and with small talk, and all of a sudden we got nothing to say, and we climb up and we're digging in our phones and we're looking at our drink. So, and I came to the party late. After being a disc jockey, I became a radio salesperson. I knew I had to come out of my shell, but I only came out of my shell to people who I knew could pay me money. And I've been in the automotive advertising business now for 20 years. So I was really good at connecting to and selling to car dealers. But I had no interest in networking to everyone else. That I figured that's of no use to me. And the internet really opened it up. When I started playing on the internet and started taking it more seriously, I realized that there are thousands and thousands of people, and I can reach every one of them on a device that I hold in my hand. I can reach the entire world if I've got a big enough story to tell, and I can tell them my story. I can communicate, I can convince, and I can convert. And I was on a podcast the other day with a guy, and I'm reading his book now, and he says that your network is your most valuable asset. Your network is more valuable than your house, because we all wait for opportunity to knock. That's the expression. Opportunity knocks. You got to be ready when opportunity knocks. But here's the thing. Opportunity does not knock. Opportunity is an ethereal concept. No one's going to just plop in front of your door. There's no opportunity fairy that comes up and rings the doorbell from UPS. Every opportunity in the world is connected to another human being, one way or another. And you have to connect to find these now. And it's a dynamic process. You never know where your network is going to take you. One person leads to another idea, leads to another idea. And you don't necessarily know what's going to bubble up from this soup that you're mixing. But if you don't get out there and connect widely, eventually the opportunities are going to quit coming. Right now, it's an amazing time. We have this device in our pockets that allows us access to the entire human population, and to not take advantage of it, I think, is just crazy.
Do you mind sharing whose podcast and book that is?
The book is called Not Taught. I can't find it.
Keenan.
By Jim Keenan. That is right. Yeah, not Taught by Jim Keenan. And his book is great because he is no holds barred. He says, your network is your most valuable asset. It's more valuable than your house. And if you're not nurturing it and growing it, you're going to be out of the water.
I suspected that too. It was, but just wanted to confirm. He was on the show a few weeks back, and I really enjoyed chatting with him. Well, I have a couple of questions I want to ask you, Terry, not directly related to the book. Before I do that, is there anything else from the book you want to make sure that we walk away with?
Well, while we're talking about networks, we all know the Jim Rohn quote that we are the average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with, the 5 people they hang out with. One of the ideas that I like to talk about is that the reverse of that is also true, that the 5 people we hang out with, the 5 people we know and love, are a reflection in part of us. I have a wife and 3 children. They are a reflection of me. The actions that I make, the decisions that I make, the habits that I create, that ripples out to them. In addition to being a receiver, we're all broadcasters. And I talk about in the book how you have the right to create a better life, and you have all the resources you need to have a better life, but you have a responsibility to make your life better. You've been given this amazing gift. You're here at this time, in this place, right here, right now. The fact that you're even here at all is an enormous miracle. And you have these people that you love who are counting on you to be the best you can be, or if not the best you can be, at least a better you.
Terry, I know you're an avid reader. Name for us some books that you've read over the years, whether they're ones you're currently reading or ones that you've read in the past that have had the biggest impact on you, and maybe ones that you go back to again and again.
Probably the most impactful books over the course of my life has been the two Dale Carnegie books, How to Win Friends and Influence People and How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. I've gone through the Dale Carnegie course multiple times, and they really affect your worldview and talk about how to build your network. Dale Carnegie, he says that no matter what field you're in, 85% of your success is dependent on your human relation skills, your ability to communicate, convince, and convert other people to your way of thinking. It doesn't matter whether you're an engineer or a disc jockey. Your people skills are what's going to determine your eventual success. I talked earlier about Daniel Gilbert from Harvard, and he's a Harvard psychologist. He's got a great book that really changed my life, and I talk about this all the time. I'm eventually going to have to send him an invoice for all the publicity I give him. A book called Stumbling on Happiness. And it really changed the way I view happiness and the way I think. And we all think happiness is an external function, that we will become happy if we get these things that we're looking for, if we get the new job, if we get the perfect mate, if we lose 100 pounds, if we make $1 million, we can be happy then. And what he proves in the book, Stumbling on Happiness, is, first of all, you don't know what you want. You think you know what you want, but you don't have the faintest idea. And secondly, getting it is not going to make you happy. Happiness is a completely internal function. It's manufactured in your head, and you have to reach inside to find it. There's a book by, I think he's a reporter, and I'm not sure which organization he reports for, but a guy by the name of Charles Duhigg wrote a book called The Power of Habit. And he took the ideas that I learned from B.J. Fogg about the habit loop and really flushed them out on habit creation, how you create habits both personally and in organizations and in products, creating products that are sticky, that create habits for people to come back to. It's a great book for really deep diving into the idea of habit formation.
As a TED speaker, a TED Talk giver, I'd be curious to know, Terry, what are some of your tips for being sure to deliver a talk that's impactful and one that's memorable?
Well, the first thing, if you have any desire to speak in front of people, to communicate, convince, and convert, whether it's giving a TED Talk or giving a sales presentation, the first thing I would encourage anyone to do is to join their local Toastmasters organization. I'm a member of a Toastmasters group here in town, and we meet every week. And I've gone through the Dale Carnegie course a couple of times, and the Dale Carnegie course is great for getting you up and speaking. But Toastmasters gets you up and speaking every week, and the price is almost non-existent. It's dirt cheap. But what Toastmasters has done for me is, a couple years ago, I gave a speech, and I got, I was super excited to give my first big speech, and I memorized every word, I memorized every line, and every dramatic gesture, and every dramatic pause, and then I had all these notes of what I wanted to talk about. I got up in front of I was at a sales conference in Dallas, and I got up in front of everyone, and I realized I can't read my notes without my reading glasses because I'm 50 years old. And then when I wear my reading glasses, I can't see anyone I can't even see the front row. There's this vast blur of humanity. So I'm standing on this stage in Dallas, Texas, trying to read my notes, talking to this blur of people I can't see, and just getting more nervous and more lost as the time went by now. And I got finished. No one threw anything at me, but it wasn't a spectacular speech because I was lost in the notes, and I wanted everything to be perfect. But things aren't going to be perfect. There's always going to be a little bird poop in the pool. Things are never going to be perfect. So what I tell everyone is, when you're speaking, quit trying to be perfect. Internalize the story that you want to tell, and tell your story. And if you're telling your story and you're speaking from the heart instead of speaking from your head, you don't have to go by the notes that you have. You can just tell the story that needs to be told. Tell the story that wants to be told. And people aren't going to remember whether you stammered a little. People aren't going to remember whether you said 17 times or whatever. They're going to remember the story that you told and how you made them feel. So my advice to speakers is two things: join Toastmasters and speak from the heart. Speak from the heart, not from your head.
I love when conversations lead to firsts here on the show, and I think we have one here, and it's bird poop.
Bird poop, yeah.
The book has been out for, a few weeks?
It's actually a few months. I released the book on December 28th. Okay. So on December 28th, I went to bed as a fledgling writer, and I woke up on December 29th, and I was #1 in my category on Amazon. On December 30th, I got the tramp stamp right across the back. It says #1 best-selling author. So No one can take that away from me, Jeff.
That's right. That's right. Well, what are you working on next? What's on the horizon for Terry Lancaster that you can share about?
The biggest thing that's been a surprise for me since the book came out is I wrote the book, and again, I didn't know what was going to bubble up from this activity that I was taking. I wanted to write the book. And the biggest thing that I've gotten is the feedback that I got. People really enjoy the book. I've got a ton of reviews on Amazon, 80 some odd reviews, averaging 4.9 stars. And I read these reviews, and I get emails from people in India, in Britain, all across the U.S. and Canada. Hey, I've done that. I've lost 10 pounds. I started walking around the block. My wife and I are doing push-ups when we pee. I get these feedback that my little words in my goofy little book are actually helping people change their own lives. And that's been more fulfilling, I think, than anything I've ever done in my life. So my entire goal these days is to wake up every day and to share this story more, to get more people to look at creating a better life and giving up on the pursuit of perfection in whatever role that takes. If I can do more podcasts, I've loved doing these. I've got to meet a lot of great people. So I want to get on more podcasts and talk about this. I want to get in front of audiences and deliver this speech and deliver these ideas and change people's lives that way. And I'm looking at other ways to do that. One of the things it's in the formative stages. I think I'm probably going to take what's in the book and create an online training, small group course of some kind so that I can actually work, deep dive with a couple of people who are trying to create habits in their life and work with people around the world like that. But I really enjoy the impact that this seems to be having on folks.
And you just reminded me, I think we actually had two firsts, poop and pee.
Poop and pee, yeah.
In the same conversation.
I got bodily functions all day long, Jeff, whatever you want to talk about.
Well, the book, again, is Better Self-Help for the Rest of Us, and I found it to be, and I mean this in a good way, irreverent, snarky, full of great and easy-to-follow advice. Terry, it's a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for sharing your work with us today.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate you.
To find out more about Terry, including the links and resources he mentioned, as well as the books he recommended, just go to the page created especially for this episode, and you'll find that at readtoleadpodcast.com/132 for episode 132. A few weeks ago, I featured an episode of listener questions, and I'm toying with the idea now of adding a listener question to the end of forthcoming episodes. I say toying with the idea because I'm not certain 100% that it's something you want me to do. And so the best way to cast your vote, if that is indeed something you'd like to see me do in the future, is to simply ask a question. And the way you can do that is go to readtoleadpodcast.com/question. Singular, no S on the end, readtoleadpodcast.com/question. There, just using your computer's external microphone, you can leave your question. And if it turns out I receive a good amount, I may begin including these at the end of future episodes. And by the way, when you leave your question, be sure to begin by introducing yourself and stating your website address if you have one. Hey, ratings and reviews are always appreciated. readtoleadpodcast.com/iTunes if you listen to us on that platform, or readtoleadpodcast.com/Stitcher, another way to leave a rating and review. And please consider the free trial being offered right now by our sponsor, FreshBooks. Just go to freshbooks.com/readtolead. Well, that does it for this week. I look forward to seeing you next time for the Read to Lead podcast.
Thanks so much for listening to the Read to Lead podcast. As a subscriber, we challenge you to be more than just a passive listener. Become a vital member of the community. Visit us on the web at readtoleadpodcast.com. Until next time, remember, leaders read and readers lead.